In July 2014, a helicopter crew flying a routine survey mission over the Yamal Peninsula in Siberia saw something in the tundra below that made no sense. A hole, a perfect, circular, enormous hole in the ground, roughly 30 meters across, the sides going straight down into darkness, the ground around the rim disturbed and scattered as if something had pushed outward from inside. Nobody had reported it. There was no earthquake, no meteor impact, no industrial activity nearby. The hole simply appeared, and when scientists reached it and looked inside, they couldn't immediately explain it. That was the first one. Since 2014, dozens more have appeared across Siberia and the Arctic, some larger than the first, some appearing overnight, some discovered only when the ground above them collapses without warning, swallowing frozen earth, vegetation, and anything else that happened to be sitting on top. The largest documented craters are over 50 meters wide and hundreds of meters deep, and the process that creates them is not slowing down, it is accelerating. This is not a geological curiosity from the distant past. These craters are forming right now. The mechanism behind them involves something that sits under the frozen ground of the Arctic, has been building pressure for years, and is directly connected to the warming of the planet in a feedback loop that scientists describe as one of the most serious and least discussed climate risks on Earth. Stay with me, because what is happening under the Siberian tundra is stranger and more dangerous than most people realize. Let's start with permafrost, because without understanding permafrost, the rest of the story doesn't make sense. Permafrost is ground that has been frozen continuously for at least 2 years. But in most of the Arctic, we're talking about ground that has been frozen for thousands of years. In some parts of Siberia, the permafrost extends to depths of over 1,500 meters. It covers roughly a quarter of the entire northern hemisphere's land surface. It underlies vast stretches of Russia, Canada, Alaska, Scandinavia, and Greenland. And permafrost is not just frozen dirt. It is frozen organic material. When plants and animals die in the Arctic, the permafrost preserves them, prevents them from decomposing the way organic material decomposes in warmer climates. The permafrost of the Arctic contains the frozen remains of plants, animals, and organic matter accumulated over tens of thousands of years. It is, in a sense, a freezer containing the biological record of the last ice age. But it also contains something else, something that was not placed there intentionally and cannot be removed safely: methane. As organic material slowly decomposes, even in frozen conditions, decomposition occurs, just extraordinarily slowly. It produces gases, primarily methane and carbon dioxide. In warmer environments, these gases escape to the atmosphere as they are produced. In permafrost, they are trapped. The frozen ground acts as a seal. The gas accumulates in pockets, sometimes small, sometimes enormous, under the frozen layer, building pressure over years and decades and centuries. This is the mechanism behind the Siberian craters. When the permafrost layer above one of these methane pockets thaws, when warming temperatures weaken the frozen seal from above, the pressure of the trapped gas below eventually overcomes the structural integrity of the ground above it, and the result is what those helicopter pilots saw in 2014: an explosion. Not a dramatic Hollywood fireball explosion, a sudden, violent release of gas and material that throws the contents of the ground outward and leaves a perfectly circular void where solid earth used to be. The process is called a thermokarst, and in some cases, it happens so suddenly that there is no visible warning on the surface beforehand. The ground simply fails. Let's talk about the scale of what is happening, because this is where the story moves from interesting to genuinely alarming. The Yamal Peninsula, where the first prominent crater was found, is one of the most gas-rich regions on Earth. The name Yamal in the local Nenets language means end of the world. It is a vast, flat, frozen landscape in northwestern Siberia, extending into the Arctic Ocean. Underneath it, in addition to the methane locked in the permafrost, are enormous conventional natural gas reserves, some of the largest in the world. The interaction between the warming climate, the thawing permafrost, and the trapped methane below is creating a set of conditions that researchers describe as increasingly unstable. The Yamal region in the Yamal region has been warming measurably over the past several decades. As it warms, it thaws, not uniformly, but in patches, in layers, in ways that are difficult to map or predict in advance. And as it thaws, the methane pockets below it lose their frozen lid. Some of these events are small, localized. The ground slumps, a depression forms, and the methane escapes slowly through the soil rather than explosively. This is actually the more common outcome. But in cases where the methane pocket is large, the permafrost layer above it is thin, and conditions align in the wrong way, the result is a crater. The craters that have been documented since 2014 vary significantly in size. The first Yamal crater, officially designated B1, was approximately 30 meters wide and estimated to be between 50 and 70 meters deep. Scientists who descended into it on ropes found the walls made of compressed gas hydrates and unstable, partially thawed permafrost. The air inside had extremely elevated methane concentration. The environment was, in addition to being physically dangerous, chemically hostile. But B1 was not the last. In 2020, a new crater was discovered in the Yamal region that dwarfed the 2014 discovery. This crater, measured by aerial drone, was approximately 50 meters in diameter and appeared to extend to a depth of over 100 meters. The rim showed evidence of an explosive outward ejection of material. The surrounding terrain showed signs of ongoing permafrost destabilization, and satellite imagery suggested the formation had occurred relatively recently, possibly within months of its discovery. Since 2014, researchers using satellite imagery have identified hundreds of sites across the Arctic that show signs of methane emission, ground subsidence, and permafrost failure at various scales. Not all of these will become dramatic craters, but the overall picture they paint is of a landscape that is losing its structural integrity across an enormous area. Here is the detail that makes scientists genuinely worried. Methane is a greenhouse gas, a powerful one. In the short term, over a 20-year period, methane is approximately 80 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. When permafrost thaws and methane escapes, it goes into the atmosphere. In the atmosphere, it traps heat. Trapping heat warms the planet. Warming the planet thaws more permafrost. More permafrost thaws, more methane escapes. More methane in the atmosphere warms the planet further. This is the feedback loop, and it is already running. The amount of carbon stored in the Arctic permafrost is estimated at approximately 1.5 trillion tons, roughly double the amount of carbon currently in the entire atmosphere. Not all of this will thaw. Not all of it will escape as methane. The rate and the pathway of release are complex and actively debated, but even a fraction of that stored carbon entering the atmosphere as methane would represent a forcing of the climate that would significantly accelerate warming far beyond what current models project. The craters are the visible, dramatic, telegenic end of this process, the part that gets photographs and news coverage, but they are a symptom of something much larger, the slow, widespread, ongoing decomposition and destabilization of ground that has been frozen for thousands of years. In parts of Siberia, the permafrost is thawing so extensively that the landscape is physically transforming. Forests are tilting because the frozen ground that held their roots is liquefying beneath them. Roads built on permafrost are buckling and cracking. Buildings constructed on what was considered permanently frozen ground are sinking and tilting as the ground beneath them gives way. In some Siberian towns, entire city blocks have had to be evacuated and demolished because the ground they were built on is no longer stable.
This is not a future risk. It is happening now. The Russian government has been dealing with infrastructure failures related to permafrost thaw for years. The communities most affected are remote, indigenous, and receive minimal international attention. And then there is the methane itself, not just from the craters and the permafrost explosions, but from the Arctic Ocean floor. In the shallow waters of the East Siberian Arctic Shelf, a massive underwater plateau off the north coast of Siberia, the sea floor is covered with what scientists call submarine permafrost, frozen ground that was above sea level during the last ice age and was submerged when sea levels rose after the glaciers melted. This submarine permafrost is also thawing, and beneath it are vast reservoirs of methane hydrates, methane molecules trapped in ice crystal structures that are destabilizing as the water above them warms. The scale of methane stored in the East Siberian Arctic Shelf is poorly constrained. Some researchers put the estimates in the hundreds of billions of tons. If even a small fraction of this methane were to escape suddenly, not gradually over centuries, but in a relatively rapid pulse, the effect on the global climate would be severe and essentially irreversible on any human timescale. Scientists debate the likelihood and the timeline of such a release. It is not considered inevitable, but it is not considered impossible either. And the holes that those helicopter pilots saw in 2014 was not a freak event. It was a signal, a pressure release. The planet giving a visible indication that something large and slow and fundamental is happening beneath the surface of the Arctic, something that has been building for decades, that is accelerating, and that most of the world is not paying attention to. The tundra is not stable. The methane is building, and the holes keep appearing. The sky still hides secrets. And this is just the beginning. Subscribe to Fact Harbor for more mysteries.